Presented by Revolution Radio, broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Before I get started today, I just wanted to remind you that there's training available for you. I have a professional level psychic mediumship certification program. And don't let that stop you, because you might feel like, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to be in a program like that. It's actually good for all levels of practice because it offers a wide array of exercises that take you through the body basics, all the way through the left brain exercises to psychic tools and going on into mediumship and channeling also. And it's a 12-week program. It starts again this August on Sundays at 3 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I would love to have you consider joining us. If you're interested, you can find out details at my website at mediumtraceylockwood.com. Also, I'm teaching a weekly psychic development program that is designed for beginners and intermediate students. They go in 6-week or 4-week segments, so it's affordable and fun because you get to meet people all over the country that have interests just like yours. Class size is limited in both, and again, information at mediumtraceylockwood.com. Well, today I'm going to be talking to you about experiences that I've had that I would consider nearly out-of-body experiences, and some other pretty mind-blowing experiences that I've had as I practiced mediumship and built my skills and developed my abilities. And, you know, we think about the matrix. We call it the matrix. We call it the time-space continuum, I guess referring more to the physical plane, but the matrix encompassing everything. Some people call it the Akashic record, the place where all information is stored about our past lives and experiences, not only for us, but for all beings on the earth and beyond. And some people call it the universal mind or the mind of God. And I just wanted to share some of the experiences that I've had because I found them extraordinary, and I thought that you might find them interesting. So there are lots of states of consciousness. We talked in our last episode with medium Teresa Sharp about states of consciousness, meaning our, our conscious, subconscious, and supraconsciousness that we have. But we have scales of consciousness too that, excuse me, that span perspective on what we're looking at. You know, we think of ourselves kind of in a physical body and think of things in reference to how we see the earth and the earth plane. And even when we connect with the other side, we're kind of scaled to see things that are relative in scale to us. A few times I've seen things that were so much larger than our physical body, and some of them included being completely out of my body. One of the experiences was when I became aware of one of the angels that looked over me, and each of you has the same thing. It's not that I'm so special, but it was huge, just monstrously huge. Like I would never have noticed the being because it was so huge. It was like a beam of light that just went all around and way, way up. And I would say it just dwarfed me in perspective, but I realized that it was a sort of guardian angel and perhaps connecting my existence in the physical world to the other realms that were there. It was just extraordinarily huge. And I don't know if you've experienced something like that too. I've seen angels at other levels and covered that in another episode, but it was really interesting to think about a being that large with us here on the earth. And there was another occurrence that happened where I did start to leave my body in a dream. It wasn't actually a dream, it was actually a vision when I was meditating. And as I meditated, I was thinking about the chakras, and all of a sudden it's like the view of energy. You know, we think of our chakras being related to our physical being, but all of a sudden it was like expanded to an entirely different area, size, where I was located in the orange chakra, and it was like a galaxy. And I thought about it, and each chakra had something in it. There was the purple lotus at one level. There were different totems and beings at other levels. There was a silver shapeshifter below my feet, below the red chakra. There was this galaxy that surrounded our existence in the orange chakra. And I thought about it and I thought, wow, that's kind of wild. I never thought of us being part of a larger chakra system. You know, you hear about fractals and you hear about dimensions and you do hear about scale, but it's pretty awesome to think about sort of a galaxy of creative energy, of which surrounded me personally. And again, this would be true of you too. And there were so many beings, if you can imagine, swirls of orange energy going around, and beings standing, holding space in all of those movement of energy around this sort of disk of swirling energy that was our presence, was my presence in the physical world. And the beings that were around me were way more than I expected. There were a host of them. I would say 150 would not be overestimating that. And again, I don't think I'm particularly special. I think each of you exist in a vortex of energy too. And I think the color orange is significant also because it's the color of creation, isn't it? In our orange chakra. And you can look up other aspects of the chakra colors. I did an episode on that too, if you want to look in more detail about that. But it was pretty amazing to think that we exist in dimensions and scales that are just so far beyond what our workaday world shows us. I was in another meditation out of my body, and I was traveling through universes, and I had left the earth, and it was sort of like you might imagine on Star Trek or something like that, where they're zooming in outer space and passing planets and different galaxies, and it was so amazing. And then I saw this purple lotus, and no one had told me about that before. And inside the purple lotus was Ganesh, the Hindu god of Kundalini and prosperity and happiness, which I learned more about after I had seen it. But it was this beautiful purple lotus that opened, and Ganesh was sitting on this blue elephant with purple hues, sitting inside that purple lotus as it expanded. And It was really breathtaking. Just gave such an incredible feeling of the greatness of what's out there and what's beyond, and it's just extraordinary. And in another vision related to that, just after that, I was meditating and I looked down and I had a blue trunk and I had 4 arms, and I realized that I was Ganesh. And it just was so weird to feel what it was like to be something else. And I didn't really have a sense of scale, like in the out-of-body thing where I was traveling and saw the purple lotus and saw Ganesh standing there. I thought of it as huge, like beyond the size of galaxies. So it was very odd to feel that I was actually in the body of Ganesh with the elephant head and the 4 arms, and I had things in my hands, and it was just kind of different. But anyway, so I wonder what you would find in meditation too, if you allowed yourself to go outside of your body. That one with the purple lotus actually occurred when I started focusing on the energy within, and it just became limitless. I think you've heard in other metaphysical or esoteric writings about people changing scale and changing size. And it's all in our perspective. And in those cases, all those galaxies and that purple lotus and meeting Ganesh was inside of me. And, if I look inside of me, obviously I'm not going to see Ganesh, but my awareness went within. And you can also go beyond too. When I was at Arthur Findlay, one of the students, one of the other mediums, students that was there, was talking about the all-seeing eye, and I had not heard that term before. I was like, what? And she said, the all-seeing eye, everyone's seen it. And I thought, oh, I didn't see it, but in a meditation that occurred while I was there, I was traveling, and I actually hadn't intended to see it. I wasn't like, okay, I want to see this all-seeing eye thing. I was just very relaxed, and I found myself again in that kind of galactic journey, going out of my body and past different galaxies, etc. And then as I looked into the distance, there was this eye looking back at me. And it was so amazing, because it felt like not only was I seen, but it felt like somehow connected to that eye was my home. And I didn't do any additional research on the all-seeing eye, but perhaps it's considered the eye of God. I don't really know, but it was really extraordinary. And since then I've thought, was it really an eye? And if it's an eye, was it like a human eye looking at an ant? And if so, whose eye was it? And, my mind just went wild thinking of all the possibilities that could be there. Yeah, but another experience that I had, I was traveling in, well, actually I wasn't in a meditation this time, but I was in a trance state. I was traveling in a trance state to try to understand and get the answer for one of my clients that was there. And she had been interested in, she had told me that she was working with enhancing the vibration of prosperity in her life. And all of a sudden, it's like I switched views and started looking into the matrix as if it were a cubic shape. And I know with sacred geometry, there's certain meanings to each of the shapes. This was a cube, so For those of you that are better educated on sacred geometry than I, you could think of it, I think it means the physical world. So I was looking into this matrix cube, and it was made out of, it was like I was aware of all the little particles that were in there. I was aware that of the fact that there was a lot of space between particles. It was almost like maybe a view from the astral realm into the physical realm where you can see all of those things. And I could see her guide plucking a string, and in the matrix was embedded the number 8, representing prosperity. And the 8 vibrated at a particular rate, and the guide plucked this string, for lack of a better word, and it started vibrating. They started vibrating toward each other until they created like a harmonic resonance. And her guide was explaining to me that that's how they were bringing out of the matrix that vibration of prosperity to her. And I thought personally that was pretty mind-blowing just to think about. Another one that got me so curious about the time-space continuum, the physical worlds and the worlds beyond, was doing a reading again for someone, and my guide showed me a topography of mountains and things, but there was nothing under it to create that topography. It was sort of like a grid. You've seen that on like GIS stuff. You know, it's just like a grid, like a net that was laid out with some bumps and turns. And they showed me that you could reach into the matrix, that fabric of time, if you will, and you were here and it's here, this person was here, and you could connect them with a stitch in time and connect to anyone, anywhere, irregardless of time and space. And that just fascinated me. You know, I've heard a lot of theories about the time-space continuum, whether it's coiled or stacked or linear or non-linear. And I'm sure that that's not the only expression of time. I just found it curious to see it. And it really made it evident to me about how we could just connect with anyone, anywhere. So, another perspective came to me. I was in a relationship with someone that I loved very much, and I knew that I couldn't stay with him. And I was at the soul level. I was driving, and I saw him in the etheric, the astral realm. And when I saw him, I just loved him so much, and vice versa. And then we looked down at the earth plane, and it was like looking down into a well, because we were in the higher vibrational range, and we were looking down through this well into darker and darker darkness. And as we looked down into the well, going into the physical world and the time that we exist and live in now, it became very silty and dark down there, not utter blackness, but very dark down there. And we could both see him, and he had sort of for lack of a better word, I would call it a shell. It was like a crustacean shell. And at that instant, from the astral plane and that connection in my vision as I was driving, thankfully safely, we realized that we weren't supposed to be together in this physical world, that he was just too challenged, taking care of the things that he needed to work on in this life. And after that, I realized that, wow, like it was like looking into a well to go from the high vibrational levels all the way down to the darker, denser levels of the physical world. And then I realized that that's why it looks like a tunnel going to the light when we look at the higher realms, and you hear of people as they cross over going through the tunnel to the light. But it makes perfect sense that if we're in a very dense, dark physical plane, that we wouldn't really see anything, but as we get higher up, it would become lighter and lighter and lighter as we approach the other side. So that's my explanation of why we see a tunnel. I don't think it's brain death. And I think that when we look into another plane that's a different vibrational plane, if it's denser, then it looks darker and looks more like a well. And if we look into a higher vibrational plane, it just keeps getting lighter and lighter and lighter, like that tunnel going to the light. So anyway, speaking of crossing over, I think I had shared, I know I shared in the Life After Death video that I did about my experience of going to hell. And, you know, it just wasn't what I expected. It had followed an experience when I had met Jesus, and I don't mean that religiously, I mean seriously, like he physically manifested, and I'll talk about that in a minute too, to demonstrate another aspect of our multi-dimensionality as beings. But I had been curious because I was at the time in a Pentecostal church. I was in my mid-late 20s, and I wanted to know what hell looked like. And I had a great compassion for souls that might have been trapped in that place. And I didn't have the view that I have now. So I was concerned, but I was curious just to see it. And in a vision, two angels came and lifted me up, each on one side, sort of like by my elbows, and transported me to what I knew to be the gates of hell. And they were really tall iron gates that were just blown open. And the dirt, I noticed, was really packed down, like there was no way anything was going to grow there. And as I looked into hell, I saw that that dirt was just, it was just sort of vast area, and it was very dim. The light was very dim there, and there were just nobody there. There weren't any souls there. And I was a little puzzled by that because, you know, we're told there are. And I looked, and there were these little skittery guys, the kind of little shadowy guys. I always, when I move into a house, it's like you clear them out, like y'all get out. They're just like the, I don't know, the rats of the other world. They're not rats. They're just like really short, shadowy things. And they're scared, not scary, and low vibrational beings. And it wasn't really till many years later that I connected something that I had heard, which was Jesus destroyed the gates of hell and set its captives free. And it struck me, of course, oh my God, of course hell is empty, you know, because there's a shift. And, you know, I wonder, like, what was it like before then? Was there a physical place of torment? I know as people cross over that they go to the vibrational levels that they match. And so it's just kind of a puzzle to me whether or not there was ever a place that was that horrible, or whether it was based on the legends that you hear, like the trash piles and the threats that people used at that time if their children were bad, that they were going to go to hell, whatever the translation of the word would be there. That sort of fiery pits, you know, where trash is burned. But it's not in my experience as a medium to have seen anyone tormented once they're out of body. I have seen some astral beings that I think I discussed the inhabitants of the astral realm in another episode, that definitely had malintent, but my awareness is that when we're fully out of our body, that there is no one that can violate our will at that time. So it's something to think about. Just checking the time here. I'm coming up on the half hour here. Trying to think of a short story to tell you. I guess basically, well, we're going to come back and I'll tell you more stories, don't worry. But anyway, I think our perspective and our state of mind is so powerful. It really makes a difference in how we experience a day or how we experience a situation or a challenge. I have a really good friend, and I don't think she'd mind me saying her name is Jill. And she was in a horrible motorcycle accident a couple of weeks ago, so bad that it tore her foot off. She had to dodge a car in order to not be hit, and she said she had to lay her bike down. And she got some severe abrasions and broke 4 ribs and had her foot torn off. But her perspective was so interesting because she said right before she crashed, she had been playing songs on her Bluetooth helmet. And just before she crashed, one of her best friends that we talk to when she comes for readings, her name's Barbie, came, the song came on, and she just had a sense that everything was under control and everything was meant to be. And she was so grateful. She is so grateful that she didn't have a brain injury, that she has no neck, no spinal injuries. And she has a very strong drive to heal and to get over it. And she's already projecting adventures in the future for herself. And I wonder, I know under different circumstances, many people would have been devastated by the physical challenges. She's been in a great deal of pain with her ribs. You can imagine, I had a broken rib once and it was just awful. And having your foot reattached and had to wait for a bone surgery. But her comment on the bone surgery when they put her bones back together just a couple of days ago was that the doctors were very pleased because it was clean and there was no inflammation, like they were able to get the inflammation under control, and they have a sense that it'll be a great deal. So again, our perspective makes a huge difference. We're at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to let you go, and they didn't keep me on the air, so it's a good thing all around. All right. Well, in addition to the certification program that I offer, the professional certification program that I offer, and the weekly development classes that I'm going to be starting also in August. I'm going to be starting something every Tuesday evening on Facebook. So if you go to my professional page, which is facebook.com/medium Tracey Lockwood, you can find me at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be doing free oracle card flash readings. They're going to be short, they're going to be brief, they're going to be on point, and it's just some play that I want to do and use it as a backdrop for telling you about some of the other things that are going on. So I hope you'll join me every Tuesday right after this, well, not right after this show, actually a few hours later at 7 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me. So I was sharing with you some experiences that I've had, and I find it really fascinating that we can exchange our consciousness and transport our consciousness. We do it in the dream state when we leave our body. We do it in the trance state when we leave our body or see things from a different angle. We do it if we have a life after death experience. And our ability to feel what other people feel is definitely a human aspect. It doesn't really matter whether you're talented or not talented at it. Most people can sense what other people feel. Sometimes they shut it down, sometimes they don't care, but we can feel each other, and that exaggerates itself and expands into being able to shift into the consciousness of someone else, which is basically what mediumship is, when you bring through the messages from people or the emotions or the memories from someone else. And so it's sort of a consciousness exchange, isn't it? And all of us are connected, all of us are one, and that matrix that we started talking about, the time-space continuum and the out-of-body zones, the Akashic records, the whole entirety of the universal mind is really, really real and really extraordinary and wonderful to experience. And it's great as a person to have an alternative to just the physical world, to be able to reach beyond into our abilities and reach beyond into other realms, just to give ourselves something to think about and to realize that we're more than meets the eye there. There's more than to us than meets the eye. Well, I had shared the story of hell in the last half of the hour, but I wanted to tell you about my experience meeting Jesus. And I was in my 20s at the time. I was attending a Pentecostal church, and I was pregnant. I was quite pregnant, and I was walking around my living room in our fairly small house with a box of Cheerios on my belly and eating and just kind of wandering around, not particularly thinking of anything, just kind of strolling about and meditating. I would have called it praying then. And not actively, I was just sort of in that state of reflection. And all of a sudden I felt someone in my home. I'm sure you've had a feeling when you come up to your front door sometimes that someone's been there, or that there's no one home if you're tapping a door. But I felt somebody in my kitchen, and I had an open floor plan, so I looked through the window from the living room into my kitchen table, and Jesus was sitting there. And I was quite startled by that. First of all, I hadn't really ever imagined him being there, and it wasn't a clairvoyant vision this time. It was actually a physical manifestation, a physical expression of him. He looked as human as any of us and as physical as any of us. And he was quite amused by my astonishment. And there was just something so calming in his eyes that was sort of humorous too. It was like, how could you possibly imagine that it won't be okay? Of course things are going to turn out well. You know, it was such a positive focus and vibrational energy there. And so I went through the door to the kitchen, and I didn't know what to do. So I offered him, would he like some Cheerios? And he said, yeah, he said. And so he reached into the box and he picked out 3 and he put them in his left hand. And one by one, he ate the Cheerios and chewed them, you know, like very respectful of my food offering. And I offered him some more, and he just went, no, that's okay. And telepathically told me, would you like to sit down? And I found it odd to be talking without words, because I was used to talking with words, but it somehow worked. And so I sat down and I went out of my body, and I wish I could tell you what he said, because I would like to know. But when I came back into my state of consciousness, and the physical world that was there, he was still sitting there. And I just knew that something major had changed. And I still couldn't tell you what that was. I don't know what that was, but it was a shift for me. And I knew things would be different and that they would be okay. And he started to rise, but it's like I could see all these bodies as he ascended, each one less dense than the other. And he kind of went up on an array of bodies, you know, just up. And that has really caught my focus recently, because we have different bodies. We're an extension of our being from other levels too. So right now we do exist in the mental realm, we do exist in the astral realm, the etheric realm, and the physical realm and beyond. And it's kind of interesting to think that we're kind of bodies on a ray of, or a beam. And I wonder if that angel that I told you about has something to do with protecting that cohesion between lives and planes. But anyway, so, you know, we can transport to other realms. We have an ability to see things in other places, like remote viewing, but we also have an ability to travel into other dimensions and have those experiences as if we were physically there. One of the fondest memories that I have of sort of the newbie medium, when I was calling myself Pentecostal and in the church, was going with another, I would call her a medium, she would call me of the devil, because she doesn't think what I'm doing is appropriate, but she doesn't realize that it's the same thing that I was doing when I was in the church. Nothing changed, just the nomenclature. And I talk about that in another episode, spiritual gifts versus psychic ability. But anyway, so Jackie and I were in this other dimension, and we used to call it, we would go into prayer together, but we were really journeying in those occurrences. And we went to this place that was like on a plain. There were mountains in the background. It was a semi-arid area, but there was this one sort of oasis that was there. And there was a pool of water, and the waters were just crystal clear, just absolutely clear. And we're both remarking on it, like we're, you know, seeing things and talking about things. And I looked down into the pool, and there was this stone that really attracted me. And I reached down through the waters and picked it up, and I looked at it, and it was a heart-shaped stone. It was clear, but sort of like quartz would be, but it looked like someone had taken a drop of blood and put it in water, and you could see the trail of that blood. And I knew that it represented my spirit. I knew that it was a spirit stone. And I also knew that you know, my life would be tinted with pain in different ways along the way. It didn't cover the whole stone. It was just trailing through there. And of course, life is not easy in the physical world, is it? So, and she picked a different stone up. And I can't recall now whether we had been talking while we were experiencing that, or whether we both experienced it and told each other after. But I know at one point we were coordinating our encounter and our experience. And it was so interesting, because it was as if she was standing in a different orientation on the pool. And so her vision of what was there was a little different. And she too had picked up a stone. And I don't recall what her stone looked like, but I know that it was her spirit stone. So interesting, the pool of spirit stones. Wonder if any of you ever have had that experience or dreamt it or visited there. So changing perspective, you know, we can remote view. We can do it outside of time. We can do the past, the present, the future. One of the most sobering things that I do as a medium is help people figure out what happened at a murder scene or what happened when someone passed, whether it was suicide or whether it was murder, whether it was intended or accidental. And I've been fortunate in some cases. The others I never heard, but the few cases that I have, the facts ended up collaborating what I was experiencing. One of the times there was a mother who had lost her son. He had been out partying and she didn't know what had happened. And I saw the strangest thing. I saw his body tucked up like an infant, you know, like inside the womb, and wrapped in some kind of, I said, I don't know, it looks like he's like a mummy or something like that. And she just burst into tears because they had found him wrapped, curled up and wrapped in a sheet. So obviously there were some other people there, and I won't go into the details for her privacy of the rest of the situation, but yeah. And there was another girl who had come to me, and her mother had been murdered, and I was able to, you know, tell her that I saw her in the bathroom. She said yes. I said, she was shot. She said yes. I said, did she spin around after she was shot and fall in kind of an odd position? She said yes. And so Spirit gave me the view of what was going on, and I was able to describe the hair color, ethnicity, and stature of 3 people who were involved. And again, I can't go into further detail, but it's just like, obviously that was a tremendously traumatic experience for her to go through, but I still find it so interesting that we can do that. I know I heard that this, you know, is a common experience. I think it's Dr. Weiss that had a client named Catherine that he had put into regression, a hypnotic regression, and she started describing the people in his family that had crossed, and she was not a medium. And again, I support the fact that being a medium is nothing that anyone isn't. It's something that all of us have the ability to do. It's a natural ability. I think some of us may be more open to it or more facile with it or more interested in it perhaps, but it's a natural human ability. Another time I remote viewed, I was talking to a friend on a phone, and she just wanted to see if I could see. It was when I was first getting started. I hadn't done too many readings by that time, maybe had been working a year or so. And so I started to describe the layout of her trailer. And I said, and there's like a hallway that's opposite the bathroom. And I said, is there some, see, I said, I'm thinking of like, there's something with the light that's different there. There's like something special with the light. And she said that she had a crystal hanging on the back door of her trailer, and that the rooms were arrayed the way that I had seen them. And this isn't to be like, oh, yay, Tracey's so amazing. This is just to let you know some of the things that you're able to do. And it's just fun to find out what we can do. Another thing that really fascinates me is that sometimes it isn't us reaching to the other world. Sometimes the other world is reaching to us. And I had an experience as a child that I never shared with my mom, and you'll probably understand why. I was at my grandfather's house, her father and mother's house, and we used to sleep. There weren't enough bedrooms, so my mom and dad would take the second bedroom, and then my brother and I would sleep usually in the living room at the first. And there was a huge long couch, so really both of us could fit on it. We just sort of put feet together, and you know, families do that. And so I remember one day or one evening we had gone to bed, and there was this huge picture. It was kind of one of those Dutch style paintings that was hanging over the back of the couch. And I didn't even know that it was a relative, actually, but for some reason in the painting, his spirit started to use the painting to try to communicate with me, and his head came out of the picture, like 4 or 5 inches out of the picture, and very 3D, and I saw it so clearly. And I don't remember if my brother saw it or I just scared the pants off of him by telling him about it, but neither one of us slept on the couch after that for a good long time. And the next I heard about that was when I was at Arthur Findlay in England, and the 5th medium over the last 2 years prior, from 2008 to 2010, I had 5 mediums tell me there's a William around you. And I was like, I don't know a William. I don't know a William. And they said, well, he had a big black beard. He wore a kilt. You would have seen a picture of him. And I'm thinking, oh, I would remember that picture, you know. And it wasn't until I asked my mom the second time, Mom, like, there has to be a William in our family. Like, I don't know. Everybody's saying there's a William and he's got to. She said, well, let me check. And I thought, what? Like, check? And she said, yeah. And so I said, well, in what? And she said, the Addams family genealogy. So she goes over, and I'm thinking about the music from the Addams family, like, da-dun, 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 you know, the Addams family, and laughing and thinking, of course, that's my family. And so she's going back, and she's like, I don't know. She said, there's like William the Conqueror. I don't know who that is. I'm like, Mom, it's a king. And she goes, there's William of Orange. And I said, she didn't know who that was either. I said, it's a king, Mom. And she goes, oh yeah, I think this is it. And it was William from the painting. And I had seen a picture of him, and that was just really incredible. Well, time has flown. I had some other stories I would have loved to share with you, but for another day. Thank you for joining me. Please remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.